The crystal chandeliers above me swayed with each movement of the mourners, their designer heels clicking softly against the Italian marble of the Park family estate, like a countdown to something I couldn't name. I'd been serving champagne and canapes at Seoul's elite corporate events for 2 years now, but I'd never felt the weight of wealth and cultural distance pressing down on a room quite like this. The air smelled of white orchids. Too many white orchids, their delicate, expensive fragrance mixing with imported incense and grief, performed in perfect Korean that I could only partially understand. My fingers ached from gripping the silver serving tray. I'd been on my feet for 10 hours, weaving through clusters of executives in bespoke black suits and women in couture hanbok that probably cost more than my yearly rent. They spoke in rapid Korean about the deceased, their voices carrying that particular reverence reserved for the powerful and the untouchable, a reverence I recognized even without understanding every word. Ireon Bigogi. Such a tragedy, an elderly woman whispered near me, diamond jewelry gleaming at her throat. Young Jae Park, 34, Simjang Mabi. Heart attack, they say. Her companion replied in Korean, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. Who would have thought? A man with everything. I shouldn't have been listening, even though I barely understood. I was supposed to be invisible. That's what Ms. Choi, my supervisor at elite Seoul events, had drilled into me during training, her English impeccable but her meaning crystal clear. Serve, bow if addressed, and disappear. We were ghosts in their world, nothing more. And I was even more invisible than the other servers, the only black face in a sea of Korean mourners, my brown skin making me simultaneously hypervisible and completely unseen. But something about this funeral felt wrong. Maybe it was the way security personnel gathered in tight formations, their eyes constantly scanning the crowd with military precision. Maybe it was the bulges I'd noticed beneath several suit jackets. Earpieces, I realized with a cold shock, and probably weapons, even at a funeral. Or maybe it was the casket itself, positioned at the far end of the ceremonial hall like a sacred altar, surrounded by enough white orchids to fill an entire Seoul flower market. I'd heard whispers about young Jae Park. Everyone who worked corporate events in Seoul had. He'd inherited Park Industries at 28 when his father died, transformed it from a regional tech company into Korea's third-largest conglomerate, worth $8 billion, they said, though everyone knew that was just what made the newspapers. Beneath the legitimate empire ran currents of corporate espionage, hostile takeovers, board coups, things people like me didn't speak about if we valued our work visas. The Park family had dominated Korean tech for 2 generations, and Young Jae had been their prince, then their king, and now, apparently, their corpse. I moved through the crowd, offering champagne to people who took crystal flutes without seeing my face. My feet throbbed in the cheap heels I'd bought at a discount store in Itaewon, and I could feel a blister forming on my left heel. And the black uniform dress I wore, the only formal thing I owned that seemed appropriate, was starting to cling to my back despite the air conditioning that kept the hall at a temperature that probably cost more per hour than I made in a day. Jogyo Misu. A hand touched my elbow and I turned to find an elderly Korean woman in an exquisite black hanbok, her hair in a perfect chignon, her eyes like polished obsidian. She spoke to me in rapid Korean, gesturing sharply toward the casket. I caught only a few words. Gokdul, flowers, Saidulo, wilting. I'm sorry, I began in English. Gokdul flowers. She repeated more forcefully this time, pointing at the casket with a manicured finger. Gaseo go choyo, go, fix them. Her tone left no room for misunderstanding. I blinked. I'm serving beverages, ma'am. I'm not. Jigum. Now, she commanded. Her voice didn't rise, but something in it, that particular Korean authority that demanded obedience, that cut across language and culture, made my stomach clench. This wasn't a request. I set down my tray on a nearby table, my hands trembling slightly, and walked toward the casket. My heart hammered against my ribs. The crowd seemed to part around me, conversations pausing, heads turning. I felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that made my skin prickle with awareness. I was suddenly conscious of my outsider status, Black American woman, service worker, walking through this sea of Korea's corporate elite toward their fallen CEO. As I approached the ornate casket, I began adjusting the wilting orchids with trembling fingers. My eyes drifted to his face, young Jay Park, looking almost peaceful in an expensive black suit, his features perfect like carved marble. Then I saw it, a flutter. So slight I thought I'd imagined it, a barely perceptible movement beneath his jaw, just where a pulse would be. I froze, my hand suspended over the flowers. I looked closer at his chest. Was it rising? Falling? The movement was so subtle it could have been a trick of the candlelight flickering from the ceremonial candles nearby. But then I noticed the faintest mist on the glass casket lid near his face. My hand moved on instinct, pressing 2 fingers against his neck where the pulse point should be. His skin was warm, not cold, not lifeless. Warm. And there, impossibly slow, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable, I felt it. A heartbeat. 그는 죽지 않았어. The words tore from my throat in broken Korean before I could stop them. He's not dead. Someone call 911. The ceremonial hall erupted into chaos. Elderly women screamed. Security rushed forward. Hands grabbed at me, pulling me away from the casket, but I fought them, pointing desperately at young Jay's chest. He's breathing. Look at him. He's alive. Then his eyes opened, dark, intense, looking directly at me through the chaos, through the screaming mourners and shouting security guards, through the complete destruction of everything this funeral was supposed to be. Young Jay Park's hand shot out, grasping mine with surprising strength for someone who'd been declared dead. He spoke one word in Korean that I didn't understand, but the authority in it silenced the entire room. Paramedics swarmed. Monitors appeared. Oxygen masks. The organized chaos of saving a life that everyone had already mourned. And through it all, young Jay's hand never let go of mine. Chief Han, I'd learn his name later, appeared beside me as they loaded young Jay into an ambulance. "You're coming with us," he said in English, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I need to. My job. I have to." "You're coming with us," he repeated. Now. The private hospital room smelled of antiseptic and expensive leather, the kind of medical facility where even the air felt curated for the wealthy. Young Jay Park lay sedated in the bed, monitors beeping softly, while I sat in a corner chair under the watchful glare of 2 security guards who hadn't blinked in an hour. Dr. Kim, silver-haired, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of composed that came from decades of treating Korea's elite, stood beside a security chief built like a wall, reviewing toxicology results on a tablet. "Designer neurotoxin," Dr. Kim said in English, glancing at me like I might understand the significance. "This poison mimics death perfectly, slows the heart rate to nearly undetectable levels, suppresses breathing, lowers body temperature. Someone with access to military-grade biotechnology did this." His eyes narrowed. Someone who wanted him buried alive. The security chief, I'd heard someone call him Chief Han, turned his attention to me. Convenient timing, don't you think? Foreign worker. No family in Korea. No connections to explain. He spoke English with barely an accent. "You show up at his funeral, make a scene, play hero." "I didn't play anything," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I saw he was breathing. That's all." "Or you knew exactly what to look for, because you knew what poison was used." Before I could respond, young Jay's eyes opened. He blinked slowly, focusing first on the ceiling, then scanning the room until he found me. His first words, spoken in English, were quiet but clear. "Who are you?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. 3 hours later, I was escorted not to a police station but to the Park family estate, to what they called a guest suite that was larger than my entire apartment in Itaewon. Silk curtains, king-sized bed, a bathroom with marble counters and a soaking tub. A gilded cage with a view of manicured gardens and security cameras I could see blinking from the corners. Young Jay appeared at my door that evening, still pale but steady on his feet. He dismissed the guards with a gesture and stepped inside, studying me with an intensity that made me want to disappear into the expensive furniture. He spoke in careful English, his accent slight but deliberate, like he was choosing each word to put me at ease. "Tell me everything," he said. "What you saw, what you heard, why you cared enough to disrupt a funeral for a man you didn't know." I told him about the flutter beneath his jaw, the mist on the glass, the warmth that dead bodies don't have. He listened without interrupting, his dark eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Chief Han found something. The event company that employed you, Elite Seoul Events. The funding trail leads to shell corporations. Someone wanted you at that funeral." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I've worked for them for 2 years." "Which means someone has been planning this for 2 years." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Stay. Help me find who did this. I'll clear your debts, all 80,000, secure your visa, and keep you alive." "But why me?" I whispered. His answer cut through every defense I'd built. "Because you're the only person who had no reason to keep me alive. Like that makes you the only person I can trust." 72 hours of security lockdown cleared me. Background investigations, financial audits, polygraph tests I didn't know were legal in Korea. All of it confirmed what young Jay had already decided. I wasn't part of the conspiracy. I was the unexpected variable that ruined someone's perfect plan. The Park family, however, remained unconvinced. His mother, Mrs. Park, elegant in a cream hanbok, her face a mask of controlled composure, acknowledged my presence with the barest nod during our first formal dinner. His younger sister Minji, 26 with a parson's education and genuine curiosity, was the only one who smiled at me. "So you're the one who saved my brother," she said in perfect English. "Thank you." Uncle Park, who held 25% of Park Industries' shares, didn't hide his hostility. I didn't need to understand much Korean to catch the word migugin, American, spat like an insult across the table. A hanbok appeared in my room the next morning, crimson silk with gold embroidery, tailored perfectly to my measurements. Minji came by in the afternoon for what she called survival Korean lessons, teaching me phrases beyond basic greetings. "Jeogyo, excuse me. 죄송합니다. I'm sorry. 이해할 수 없어요. I don't understand." We laughed over my pronunciation until the absurdity of the situation, me, living in a mansion with a tech billionaire I'd met at his own funeral, felt almost normal. The wealth was everywhere. Original artwork I recognized from Christie's catalogs hung casually in hallways. The staff quarters were larger than my entire apartment. I overheard casual conversations about millions, the way I used to discuss dollars. Young Jay worked from his home office, and I found myself bringing him coffee in the afternoons. American style, 2 creams, no sugar, the way I'd noticed he drank it. We'd talk about his childhood, always being groomed for succession. The pressure that crushed him when his father died and he inherited everything at 30. The loneliness of power when everyone wants something from you. "Even the people who love you," he said quietly, "love what you represent more than who you are." Board members visited constantly. I was learning to understand their whispered Korean, 구여자, that woman, 창피해, embarrassing. 그가 무슨 생각을 하는 거야? What was he thinking? Then, Haewon arrived. Perfect Korean beauty in a designer suit, speaking English with a British accent polished at Oxford. Her smile when introduced to me was cruel in its politeness. How unexpected, she said, the pause deliberate. That evening, young Jay found me reading financial journals in the library. He looked surprised, then impressed. Why did you stop? He asked, noticing the unfinished MBA on my background check. My grandmother got sick. I had to choose between school and keeping her alive. Wasn't really a choice. He was quiet then. I understand making impossible choices. The chemistry between us felt dangerous, inevitable, like gravity. At midnight, Chief Han burst in. Someone accessed the private chef's kitchen 4 days before the funeral. We have footage, but the face is obscured. My phone, the one young Jay had given me, buzzed with a text in Korean. 당신은 안전해요. I showed it to Minji, who translated with a small smile. You're safe. I wasn't supposed to hear the argument. I was walking past young Jay's office when Haiwan's voice, sharp and cutting, froze me in place. This infatuation with the help is making you look weak. Young Jay's response was cold. Don't. I'm stating facts. You're choosing her over our family's alliance, over everything we built. We built nothing. He switched to Korean, then back to English. Our fathers built. I'm building something different. Haiwan stood in traditional hanbok, silk and tradition personified, while young Jay wore a modern suit. Old Korea versus new. The visual metaphor wasn't subtle. You'll regret this, Haiwan said, then noticed me in the doorway. Her smile was venomous. Ah, the American savior. Tell me, do you even understand what you've disrupted? That evening, I started packing, and the shame was overwhelming. The feeling of being exactly what Uncle Park accused me of. An outsider disrupting a world I didn't understand, couldn't possibly belong to. Young Jay found me folding the hanbok, my hands shaking. Where would you go? He asked quietly. Anywhere I fit. He moved closer, his voice dropping to something raw and honest. What if I don't want you to fit their mold? What if I want someone who sees beyond the corporate theater? Beyond the performance we're all required to give? The almost kiss was interrupted by Minji bursting in with news. The board had called an emergency meeting. Major shareholders were threatening a no-confidence vote. The ultimatum was clear. Young Jay had to resolve the situation with the American woman or face removal. As security prepared for the crisis, Haewon cornered me in the hallway. She spoke slowly, deliberately, making sure I understood every word. You have no idea what you've stepped into. This isn't romance. This is war. And you just became a casualty. Young Jay returned to Park Industries headquarters for the first time since his resurrection. I insisted on coming. If I'm part of the problem, let me help solve it. His office took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, walls covered with awards and patents, a single photo of his late father displayed prominently. This was the empire he'd inherited, the weight he carried. We worked late into the night, me reviewing financials he pulled up on multiple screens. My unfinished MBA suddenly felt relevant. This subsidiary, I said, pointing, it's hemorrhaging money. The numbers don't match the quarterly reports. Young Jay studied the discrepancy, then me. You have an eye for this. You should finish that degree. Maybe, I said, if I survive whatever this is. The conversation shifted to something deeper. Or his isolation, the expectations to marry appropriately, meaning Haewon or someone equally connected, equally Korean, equally acceptable to shareholders and tradition. My confession tumbled out about my grandmother, about pride, about never feeling like I belonged in spaces where everyone else seemed born to be. I'm too proud to feel like I belong in your world, I admitted. The kiss happened before either of us decided it would. Desperate, hungry, breaking through every barrier of culture and class and fear. When we broke apart, young Jae spoke first in Korean. 나는 당신을 사랑해요. I don't understand, I whispered. I love you, he said in English. Then I'll teach you. Every word, every meaning. My phone buzzed, an encrypted text in perfect English. The board meeting tomorrow is a trap. They're not removing you. They're removing him. Chief Han traced it immediately. The message came from inside Park Industries, from the executive floor. Young Jae held the phone, his expression unreadable. Someone's trying to help us, he said quietly, or lead us into a bigger trap. The emergency security sweep began at dawn. Electronics forensics teams swarmed Park Industries like a military operation. Young Jae's CFO, a man I'd seen at the funeral, impeccably dressed, always composed, started sweating during questioning. Chief Han focused the investigation on him with predatory precision. Uncle Park stormed the estate that afternoon, his racist tirade in Korean no longer needing translation. I understood enough. Hugin Wegugin, black foreigner, gamunte suchi, family shame. 그 여자 때문에. Because of that woman. Young Jae's response was devastatingly calm, delivered in both languages. I'm saving this family from itself, from your generation's corruption. Security escorted Uncle Park off the property. Minji found me afterward, shaking. He holds 25% of shares. This will get ugly. That evening, we gathered for strategy. Young Jae, Minji, Chief Han, and me. When they started discussing the board's motivations in rapid Korean, I interrupted with my own question. This isn't about me, is it? Removing Young Jae puts someone else in power. Who benefits most? The room went quiet. Then Chief Han pulled up financial records showing shell companies, bribes to the medical examiner, the neurotoxin traced to a biotech firm. A firm owned by Haewon's family. At dawn, security brought in the CFO. He broke under interrogation, his confession recorded. Haewon promised me CFO of the merged companies. She orchestrated everything, the poison, the corrupt doctor, the timing. She was supposed to claim emergency control as his grieving fiancé. But that woman, he looked at me with something like awe. She ruined everything by actually checking if he was alive. Where is Haewon now? Young Jae's voice was ice. Chief Han checked his phone. Her private jet left for Switzerland 2 hours ago. She knows we know. The international arrest warrant hit the news before we could prepare for the board meeting. Haewon's face splashed across every Korean media outlet. Allegations of attempted murder and corporate conspiracy dominating headlines. Young Jae presented the evidence methodically. Recordings, financial trails, the CFO's confession. But the board split anyway. Half supported him. Half claimed he was compromised by his relationship with me. The meeting was live-streamed to shareholders worldwide. Media gathered outside like vultures. Uncle Park made his motion. Young Jae was unfit to lead due to impaired judgment. I watched from the anteroom, seeing him stand alone against his own board, and something inside me broke open. I walked into that meeting uninvited. Cameras swiveled, conversation stopped. I spoke first in broken Korean, Yorubun, Jamgan Manyo, then switched to English. You want to talk about judgment? About vision? He was pronounced dead by your doctors, accepted as dead by everyone in this room. I saw what you refused to see. I pulled up my analysis on the main screen. I've spent 2 weeks reviewing every division of this company. Here's where the real problems are. The MBA training I'd abandoned kicked in. Professional analysis, market projections, strategic recommendations. The board members' faces shifted from dismissal to reluctant attention. Young Jae stood. She saw I was alive when everyone else saw death. Maybe that's exactly the vision this company needs. I'm appointing her as special consultant to the CEO. The vote failed 52 to 48%. We'd won by the slimmest margin. In the aftermath, opposing shareholders offered me $10 million to leave Korea. I'd sign an NDA, disappear. I looked at the contract, then at them. I'm not for sale, and I'm not leaving. That evening, young Jae found me alone in his office, Seoul glittering below us. He spoke in Korean first, Gyeolun hae jul reo, then English when he saw my confused expression. Will you marry me? The engagement announcement broke the Korean internet. Racist comments flooded social media alongside supportive messages. We planned a fusion ceremony, traditional pieback followed by Western vows. Young Jae's mother evolved before my eyes, from cold rejection to tearful acceptance. You saved my son. Maybe you can save this family too. Shopping for a hanbok and wedding dress with Minji felt surreal with paparazzi following us everywhere. I learned Korean wedding etiquette intensively, the proper bows, tea ceremony protocol, how to accept gifts from elders who barely tolerated my existence. Haewon's family filed lawsuits from Switzerland, breach of contract, business defamation. The international media had a field day. Korean billionaire marries Black American waitress. The coverage ranged from celebratory to viciously racist. My friends flew in from Chicago for the bachelorette party. The cultural clash became celebration as Minji's Korean friends and my American crew bonded over soju and stories. The day before the wedding, protesters gathered outside the estate, Korea for Korean signs. Riot police. Young Jae held a press conference, speaking in Korean. 사랑은 우리 문화를 약화시키지 않습니다. 사랑에 대한 두려움이 약화시킵니다. Love doesn't diminish our culture. Fear of love does. The wedding itself was beautiful and chaotic. I wore crimson hanbok, bowing to elders who still disapproved. Then changed into a white dress, scandalous in Korean funeral culture, for Western vows. I promise to honor both our worlds, I said, meaning it. Protesters crashed the ceremony. Security removed them. Young Jae never let go of my hand. Nothing stops this. Nothing. The reception merged K-pop and R&B, Korean food and soul food, two worlds refusing to stay separate. Our honeymoon in Jeju Island lasted 3 perfect days before the emergency call came. You need to come back now. Haewon's family launched their coordinated attack the moment we returned. A hostile takeover attempt, buying shares through proxies, scheduling another no-confidence vote. The media warfare was brutal. Leaked evidence of young Jae's instability. Fabricated scandals about me. Court battles followed. Testifying about the poisoning meant enduring cross-examination designed to destroy my credibility. How can we trust your version of events? What were you really doing at that funeral? The racism wasn't subtle. Young Jae held my hand throughout, whispering in Korean, 당신은 혼자가 아니에요. You're not alone. His public support cost him 40% of his board's loyalty. My past became weaponized. Student debt. Dropped MBA. Every vulnerability exploited. But I had American connections they'd underestimated. I reached out to Silicon Valley investors with a pitch. Park Industries needs global expansion. I can bridge that gap. Major international investment followed, shifting the shareholder balance. The final proxy battle came down to Uncle Park's vote. He surprised everyone. Family is family, even when they're fools. We won. Young Jae retained control. I was appointed VP of Global Strategy. Haewon was arrested in Switzerland, extradition approved. 1 year later, I was pregnant. We announced U.S. market expansion at a press conference, my hand on my belly. Our son Ji-hoon Park Kingston was born into 2 worlds, 2 names, 2 cultures. Some family members embraced him, others still resisted. I found my power. No longer shrinking in boardrooms, commanding respect. Bridging cultures not by erasing myself but by being authentically both. 6 months of peace. Then Jihoon's first birthday, his Doljanchi celebration, with hundreds of guests. Thank you for listening. Kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get updates whenever we release new stories.